Hey guys, a quick message. So I wrote a script, edited a video, and did this whole thing, and then realized I never said anything about where the fourth part of the iceberg video is, which was supposed to be my next video. I'm just having a hard time writing the script for it, not because it's a hard script to write, but because it's just a lot of research and I get tired and I just wanted to do something else. I've been doing this iceberg for 6 months, more than 6 months, I don't know anymore. So I just wanted to do something different, and that's why I'm doing this video. And then hopefully the next video will be the fourth part of the sexy man iceberg. That's all I wanted to say. I just didn't want to leave it hanging and pretend it didn't exist. It's coming, don't worry, it's coming. But for now, just watch this video. Okay, thanks, bye. Hi, hello, what's up, and welcome to another video. Today's video is something I briefly talked about in my previous video, and a couple of people seemed interested in it, so here I am to talk about it. And that it's Snapewives and the weird religious movement created by them. Now, I'll get into exactly what Snapewives are and all the stuff surrounding them, but first off, I don't think you have to have read or watched the movies to understand this topic. I will give you a brief explanation on who Snape is and his role in the series, just in case. Feel free to skip it, that's why I have timestamps. Before I start, disclaimers. All my sources will be linked down in the description as always. If I get anything wrong or I'm missing information, feel free to correct me or add to it in the comments nicely. I'm only human and I'm trying my best. My main source for all of this is a Reddit post from the Our Hobby Drama by user I Was Once a Fangirl. There is also a scholar article about Snapeism by Zoe Alderton. It's really easy to find, and I'm using a little bit of information from it because a lot of the original posts have been deleted. I will not be linking the article though because it contains a lot of personal information and pictures of some of the people involved with all of this. I'm not comfortable putting their name or faces in my video, which is why I'll censor them. I also have the original Fandom Wank post, which was deleted but was archived. We'll get to that. That also contains a lot of personal information, so I will be linking it. Just please, if you do decide to look for the articles and find this information, don't harass anyone involved. It has been almost 20 years and they got enough backlash back in the day. Everything else will be linked, so...
Snape, Severus Snape.
Professor Severus Snape was a potions master and head of Slytherin House. He eventually became the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor and headmaster of Hogwarts after he kills Dumbledore. Snape was born from a Muggle father and a witch mother and raised in a Muggle area near the Evans family. This is how he meets Lily Evans, becoming her close friend and falling in love with her. Snape and Lily started Hogwarts in the same year, 1971, and he was sorted into Slytherin. During his school time, he was frequently bullied by James Potter and Sirius Black, which caused him to eventually be bitter towards his son, Harry Potter. But we'll get to that. Snape becomes involved with the pureblood supremacist from Slytherin House, which puts his friendship with Lily, a Muggle-born, at risk. They eventually stop being friends after Snape calls her a mudblood. This causes Snape to join the Death Eaters, Voldemort's followers. Fast forward a few years, Snape changes sides and becomes a double agent for the Order of the Phoenix, a secret society founded by Dumbledore to oppose Voldemort. Why did Snape switch sides? Because Voldemort finds a prophecy involving a child being responsible for his demise. When Voldemort decides this child might be Lily's baby, Harry, he asks Voldemort to spare her. You know, f*** her kid, spare the woman I called a slur. Snape doesn't trust Voldemort to spare her, so he asks Dumbledore to hide them. Dumbledore is also a little bitch, so he asks for Snape to be a spy in return for hiding the Potters. Plot twist, Voldemort doesn't spare Lily and it leads to a scene that used to piss me off so much in the movies. Sir, why are you touching that dead woman? How dare you? Also, there's an orphan baby behind you. Did you even check if the baby was fine? Fast forward more years, Harry Potter starts his first year at Hogwarts, and Snape is his potions master. Snape is a terrible person and honestly a terrible teacher too. The students that struggle in potions struggle because he literally didn't teach them anything. Hello? Dumbledore? Why did you hire this man? Something that is alluded to a lot during the books and movies is that Snape actually wants to be a professor of defense against the dark arts, but Dumbledore keeps giving that job to other people. I wonder why. Other things to know from Harry's time in school with Snape as a teacher. He literally bullied or supported bullying of students. He was Neville Longbottom's Boggart. Boggarts are these shape-shifting non-beings that take the form of the observer's worst fear. Now, while most people have Boggarts like a snake or a spider, Neville's Boggart is Snape. He's such an awful person and he's that poor kid's worst fear. I mean, honestly, I can go on for longer, but we don't have time. The most important part is that he was always antagonistic towards Harry, even though he did try to save his life a few times. We find out later it's mostly because Harry looks like his dad, which has led a lot of people wondering how different things would have been if Harry had been a girl that looked like Lily. I think we know. Moving on. Dumbledore eventually asked Snape to kill him to secure Voldemort's trust in him. Before that though, Snape promised that he would protect students from the Death Eaters that would inevitably take over. Snape doesn't protect the students from the Death Eaters. The students literally get treated like shit during the year he's headmaster. During the Battle of Hogwarts, the final battle of the series, Voldemort murders Snape because he thinks Snape is the master of the Elder Wand. The Elder Wand is... you know what? Who cares? Harry walks in before he dies though, and Snape manages to release a cloud of memories. In this universe, there's a very rare item called a pensieve, I don't know how you pronounce it. People can use magic to extract memories in the form of these like silver hair-like wisps, and they can even be stored in bottles. You can pour this into a pensieve and view said memories as if you were there. When Harry looks at Snape's memories, he sees basically most of what I just talked about, his relationship with Lily and James. The most important part of the memories he sees is that... wait, I need to explain what a Patronus is. Ugh. A Patronus charm is one of the most powerful defensive charms. There's two types of them, one doesn't matter and the other is the corporeal one. Corporeal Patronuses can take the shape of a bright silver translucent animal. The animal varies from person to person and reflects each person's personality. How many times did I say person? I'm gonna say it more. However, if the person goes through some emotional occurrences, let's say falling in eternal and unchanging love, then the Patronus can change to reflect that person they love. Lady Potter's Patronus was a doe and James's was a stag, for example. And since Harry is, I guess, so similar to his dad, that his Patronus is also a stag. Through the series, there's a couple of occasions where a doe Patronus shows up to help out Harry, which had led people to believe that it was somehow his parents involved in helping out. When viewing Snape memories, we actually see that the doe Patronus belonged to him. So Snape had always been there to help out Harry. This is supposed to show Harry and us that even after all these years, Snape still loved Lily, and the infamous "after all this time" always quote was born. And I guess for some people that was enough to forget the horrible person Snape had been till that point and just take him as a good guy. He was always trying to help. He was just pretending to be a bad guy because he was a double agent. Okay, but did he have to be a bad teacher to be a double agent? Did he have to traumatize Neville Longbottom? Anyways, after his death, Harry Potter is an idiot and makes sure to hang his portrait with all the other headmasters in the headmaster's office and names one of his kids after him. Poor Albus Severus Potter, named after two truly awful men. Probably the bravest man I've ever knew my ass. And that is all you need to know, plus some things that didn't really matter, but I told you anyways. I'm sorry.
Snape, Severus Snape.
Snapewives are a group of, to my knowledge, all women from the Harry Potter fandom active around the mid-2000s who said they could channel Severus Snape, as in let his spirit inhabit their bodies. They also were all simultaneously in a romantic relationship with him, married to him, and view him as a spiritual guide in their lives. This is known as Snapeism, and it's a religious movement centered around Severus Snape. And you might be thinking, but Cams, isn't Snape a fictional character? Well, you see, Snapewives also believe that Snape wasn't just a character from a book. No. They believe he was an omniscient and immortal deity, and the only reason he was in the books is because that woman who wrote them channeled Snape when writing them. To learn more about Snapewives and Snapeism, let's first talk about how it all began.
Snape, Severus Snape.
In order to understand how this all started, we must have a little context on the state of the Harry Potter fandom back in the mid-2000s, since some of you might have been too young to be there. Heck, I was a teenager during this time, and while I had a vague recollection of a lot of fandom drama during that time, most of it flew under my radar. I mostly stuck to my group of friends when sharing things like fanfiction, fanart, and discourse, which I am very thankful for, knowing what I know now about this fandom. The last Harry Potter book had just come out, and as you might be aware, a lot of fan favorite characters died, and the ending in general was divisive to say the least. Some people love how the series ended, and others hated every single thing that happened in that last book. As it usually happens when a piece of media has beloved characters dying and a disappointing ending, a bunch of people started writing fix-it fanfiction and happy alternate universes. And I will say, the Harry Potter fandom is known for writing better plotlines than canon. Might get hate for saying that, but hate from someone that is still into Harry Potter in 2022 means nothing to me. Severus Snape was a controversial character after the ending of the series. I would say he's still a controversial character to this day. This all goes back to what I talked about before with the always moment. Despite a bunch of people thinking Snape's intentions meant nothing and he was kind of creepy actually, a lot of people latched onto him. He was instead this ambiguous, misunderstood character. Now this type of characters are pretty popular. I have an ongoing video series about characters like him after all. There's a reason Snape is considered a sexy man by some. Snape has ambiguous allegiances, a tragic backstory, and very dark aesthetics. These are all things people tend to like in characters, regardless of what they look like. And if you watch my Sexy Man Iceberg videos or know anything about this type of fandom culture, you'll know that no matter what a character looks like, people will find them attractive. Or just draw a fan art of them being more conventionally attractive than they are in canon. And I'm referring to book Snape, not Alan Rickman on this, by the way. Anyways, Snape fans have this idea of him, which I'm gonna quote. He's a tragically broken and the person he loves doesn't love him back. So I can step in and shower him with the affection he desperately needs, which will fix him and make him adore me. Another thing you must take into account is that during this time, the internet wasn't as centralized like it is now. You didn't have Tumblr or Twitter to talk about your favorite characters, have discourse about ships, threaten real people because they have different views on your fictional characters. Back then we used to go to forums and do that. And forums were usually about one topic. So you had Harry Potter forums that had discussion boards of different ships, character, plot points. You also had Draco Malfoy exclusive forums or Wolfstorm exclusive ones. That being said, of course there were Snape-centric fan groups forming as well as tons of fanfictions and fanart of him. Most of what we're going to talk about today happened over at LiveJournal. LiveJournal is this old social media site where people could write blogs, journals, or diaries. Back in the time when this happened, you could find all kinds of fandom community there posting anything from their thoughts on the media and characters they liked to fanfiction. Now, just like fandom discourse nowadays, those groups were toxic AF. I'm talking petty argument over stolen OCs, tracing, copying ideas, the usual. Something that the Reddit post mentions that I do agree with is that this wasn't unique to the Snape forums. This was like that all over the Harry Potter fandom, as it is with most larger fandoms in general. All of these circumstances were perfect for Snape fans to create their own weird little thing, and that thing was Snapeism. This isn't a unique case by any means, by the way. Passionate fans tend to form these types of communities. Like recently I learned about Snapewives thanks to a comment left by Unhinged Scrunkly in one of my videos, which is similar to Snapewives but with Shiro from Voltron, except it has an even weirder Christian conservative subplot, and that was pretty recent too compared to our current topic. But I can't get into that can of worms right now, so let's move on to what the heck Snapeism even entails.
Severus Snape.
For starters, I want to clarify that as far as I know and understand, Snapewives technically didn't call themselves that, they call themselves Snapeists, as in members of the Church of Snapeism. Now, this isn't like when a fandom gives themselves a name like how Lady Gaga fans are Little Monsters or Potterheads. Snapeism was a religion. It has sacraments, prayers, and theology. Snapeism had an impact, as in there is a scholarly article written about it. I would say that's some impact. Now, something you must definitely know about is how Snapewives treated the Harry Potter books. As I mentioned before, They thought whoever wrote the book was channeling Severus Snape when writing, and she was inspired by the spirit, which meant that the books had flaws as they were written by a human, not by Snape himself. To understand this better, the author of the Reddit post compares this to Christianity and the Bible. See, God himself did not write the Bible, humans did. Humans who were inspired by God and Jesus and whoever else, which means the Bible has flaws, and that's why some people take some passages super literally and others are completely ignored. Oh, you know, anything that fuels their agenda is God's will, and everything else they just will forget exists. It's kind of the same with Snapeism. Since a human person wrote it, they could simply disregard the parts of the canon they didn't like. I will get more into Snapewives' relationship with the books and what they thought of Joanne later on when I'm talking about why it all ended. Snape was viewed the same as a god. He was omniscient, immortal, and definitely real, and the Snapewives will call him Master, which kinda makes me want to barf a little, not gonna lie. There was also certain Snapeists that were said to have a special connection to Snape. They were supposedly chosen by him to be the leaders. The most important aspect of it all, though, is that Snape was the one true god. You couldn't be a Christian Snapeist, for example, because that would imply that you believed in two different gods. As OP put it, Snape is all and Snape is everything, and Snape can control your destiny.
Snape. Severus Snape.
I'm putting these two together because you will see that their practices were the ultimate demise of Snapeism. I'm going to start with probably the most important argument among Snapewives. This is whether they were allowed to have earthly partners, meaning boyfriends and husbands. And you might be wondering why this matters so much. Well, they are Snapewives for a reason. One of their core beliefs was that Snapeists are married to Severus Snape. Yeah, all of them. This was a very important aspect of it all. They had wedding ceremonies that were taken completely seriously. Snapewives wrote their own vows for the wedding. Y'all want to hear it? Cause I'm about to read one to you. This was a vow written by someone who went by Lady Darkness, and she was a prominent member, one of the leaders of Snapeism. I promise to always be faithful in body and mind, and never love another man. I promise to love and cherish you all of my life. I promise to protect and honor you all of my life. I promise to dedicate all my life to you. I promise to stand by you in good times and bad times. I promise to protect and guard you and prevent you from any harm. I promise to provide anything you need for you. I promise to take the best care of you. I promise to use your name with the respect it deserves. I promise to always wear the ring with your name in it as a symbol of my love. I promise to obey you no matter what. I promise to respect your wishes and not to be selfish. I promise to look after you in sickness and in health. I solemnly promise all of this to you, Severus Snape, my only love. May this word create a strong loving bond which can only be broken by death. If I break the promises made or treat you not in the manner I should be, I'll make sure I'll die. May all the good forces and spirits bless our love eternally, so it will be done. Just a thought, but do you think they went to a real jewelry store to get their rings and get them engraved? Or they had their own Snape wife who did them for everyone? I don't know, I would have questions if I was a jeweler. And they were like, oh, can you write Severus Snape on a ring? And I guess maybe the jeweler hadn't read Harry Potter. I don't know, just a thought. Anyways, there were pictures of Lady Darkness's shrine, by the way, but all those photos have been deleted. But yeah, this wasn't a troll or an ARG or anything like that. These people were serious, and we will continue to see this through this video. And if you look into it, you will see they were very serious about this. You can probably see now why the question of whether a Snapewife could have a partner that wasn't Snape was a problem. Snapewives consider their marriages legitimate and they wanted it to be treated as such. So should Snapewives divorce their IRL husbands or never get a partner to marry Snape? There's no real answer to that, obviously. Some Snapewives did try to justify being both married to Snape and their husband. For example, apparently one woman claims Snape regularly possessed her husband, especially during sex. Which was wild and wow, but she claimed that whenever she was especially affectionate to her IRL husband, Snape's spirit took over his body. Must have done wonders for his confidence. Others had the claim that if Snape could have multiple wives, then why couldn't they have multiple husbands? Which is true, I mean, what the fuck? But hey, they did have a point. Some apparently actually broke up with their partners. Can you imagine someone asking you, why did you and your girlfriend break up? And it's because she wants to marry Professor Snape instead? Wild, but yeah. There were also just people who ignored this or decided to be celibate. I mean, apart from just having sex with Snape's spirit, I'm guessing. This divide is apparently one of the reasons Snapeism eventually died off. Now, this wasn't the only divide in the, I almost called it fandom, in the religion. We will continue to see how everything they believed in and practiced led up to a lot of debates between themselves, and ultimately, the end. Another practice that caused debate was over erotic fanfiction written about Snape. Am I really gonna talk about smut on this channel? Okay, so some Snape wives wrote smut about themselves and Snape's spirit. Yes, spirit. I'm sure the smut part isn't the surprising one, it's the spirit one. It was said to be very detailed and was treated as religious material, you know, because Snape inspired them to write it, of course. Others did not agree with this. They thought Snape's spirits liked his privacy and it was disrespectful to write erotica about him. It was against the theology of Snapeism. That said though, most of the Snape wives wrote fanfiction. It was a degree of explicitness that was the constant debate. And I know what you're thinking. Camps, that's all in writing. What about the thing you mentioned before? You know about how they have sex with his spirit? I want to know about that. You were asking about that? Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk to you about it anyways in this section the Reddit OP calls The Role of Sexism in Astral Projection. Sounds fun, huh? Remember a few minutes ago when I told you about how some Snape wives had a special connection with Snape? Okay, so these wives that had a special connection were the ones who reported getting visited daily by Snape. Now, as far as I know and understand, these visits only happened in dreams. They weren't seeing a hazy Force ghost Snape in front of them, even though that's exactly what I imagined when I first read about this. Quick question that I kind of found the answer to, but I'm gonna ask here in case somehow you know more about this than me. What did Snape look like to them? Did he look like Alan Rickman to all of them? Because I know he looked like Alan Rickman to some of them. But that would make no sense, right? Alan Rickman is just an actor playing the Snape Joanne wrote when she channeled the real one, right? The edited wedding pics were of Alan Rickman. Actually, I've seen quite a bit of Alan Rickman edits. I was trying to look through fan art to see if I found any made by Snape wives, but it's hard to tell. Usually if I see one of the wives, it's photo manipulation, and if I see any fan art with a woman, it's either Lily or... is that Hermione? Ew, I forgot people ship that. Most fan art looks like Alan Rickman or a younger version of him, but it would make no sense for his spirit to look like him. I'm thinking too much about this, let's move on. Special Snape wives that could see Snape in their dreams made the other wives jealous because they couldn't make that happen, and this was a constant source of drama in the community. Some Snape wives claimed that the reason some couldn't contact Snape's spirit was because their hearts weren't pure enough for him. Basically, every wife that didn't get visited had some flaw that made him not want to interact with them. These flaws varied, but from a lot of what I can see, it was just a bunch of body shaming. Some of the reasons mentioned in the Reddit post are that they weren't attracted enough, needed to lose weight, or their pajamas were not sexy enough, which is wild to think that's something they paid attention to. Other reasons had to do with things like ugly hobbies, although they didn't give examples to what these ugly hobbies are, so I don't know. Too much swearing, biting their nails, and some were more petty things like being a gossip, too nosy, or too crass. Here's where it gets a little cult-like and sexist in my opinion, even though I think it was already pretty cult-like. Some of them thought that the reason Snape didn't visit certain wives was because they were too independent for a woman. Basically, Snapeism was all about serving your husband. Very similar to all those fundamentalist Christians who think women's role is to serve their husband. Snape visits had to fully obey Snape as he was their husband. If Snape wasn't visiting you, it's because you were not obeying him enough. You weren't fully devoted to your spirit husband. A good Snape wife is one that would let him do whatever he wanted with them and obeyed his every command. In the words of the OP of the Reddit post, he is a man and you are a lowly, lowly woman. And this is he, your master. The most confusing part about all of this, as you might have realized too, is that there really was no way to properly obey him. I mean, if he wasn't visiting you, then how were you supposed to know what he wanted? Like, you were just supposed to take the words of the leaders because they had a special connection and they were like more womanly than you. I mean, not that I particularly think he was actually visiting anyone. I'm sure that to some degree some of these women thought that they were connected to Snape and they were believable enough to make other women feel inferior when they didn't experience the same dreams. Do I personally think the spirit of Severus Snape was visiting women who devoted themselves to him and having sex with them in their dreams? No. But I do believe at least a few of those women were having powerful dreams, maybe lucid dreams, so realistic that they thought they might be true. This actually reminds me a lot of reality shifting, which is also very popular in the Harry Potter fandom. But reality shifters scare me, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that. If you don't know what reality shifting is, it's basically people that think they can do like some sort of ritual and then fall asleep, but it's not really sleep. You're actually going to an alternate reality, and in that alternate reality, anything can happen. So for example, you can go to a reality where Hogwarts is real and you're a student. And this is all done by scripting and listening to subliminal. It's a lot, and I don't have time to explain a lot of it, but this reminds me a lot of it. By the way, people who shift, they don't think they are just having dreams or anything. They think they're actually going to another universe and like everyone in that universe is real. So if you kill someone in that universe, you're a murderer, for example. This reminds me a lot of it. Like you're probably seeing it too, right? It's not just me. Anyways, me saying that I believe these women were having really lucid dream is not out of nowhere. When I was younger, and especially when I was at lower points with my depression, I would go to bed and conjure up scenarios in my head that ended up turning into very powerful lucid dreams. I got to a point where I could imagine almost any scenario and end up dreaming something similar. Even to this day, it sometimes happens accidentally. I'll be watching a show before bed and then have dreams I'm in a similar situation. I'm fully aware I'm in a dream too, and usually I have consistent powers between dreams and see kind of the same people in them. Which is why, to an extent, I've always believed reality shifters when they speak of their experiences, because I can imagine scripting scenarios and putting on music and subliminals before you sleep will help you dream about certain things. It's not that different to what I was doing when I was younger. And I'm sure something very similar might have happened to some of these Snapewives. They believed it so much, wrote about it, and thought about it before falling asleep that they would dream about it. Not everyone can have dreams like this though. I know so many people who never even remember their own dreams. Of course, like reality shifting, I'm sure a bunch of them were also lying and making up stories just to feel like they were part of something or for fun. At this point in my research, I was wondering, if this is what it takes to get a visit in your dreams from Snape, how the hell did Joanne channel him? What was so special about her? Was she just like a random prophet? Thankfully, all of that was sort of answered, but not in the way I expected. Like, I never found out if anything made her special or why she even channeled him, but I did find out this. Snapeheads thought that Joanne had been possessed by Snape, right? But something happened. She screwed up. Snapewives instead believed that all the Harry Potter books were wrong and that they did not portray Snape accurately. The books were actually considered sacrilegious. The Snape in the books is but a shadow of the deity Snape's worship. This deity is omniscient, eternal, and immortal. You can see how that contradicts the books, huh? Basically, Snapewives refused to believe Snape died. And here's where it gets really funny. Snape's believed Joanne wasn't good enough for Snape. They continuously insulted her and thought Snape had abandoned her in order to be with them. Since Snape is his own entity though, Joanne simply didn't matter anymore. Here's a quote from a Snapeist. I believe that Severus Snape exists independently of JKR. He is a living, feeling spirit. I believe anything is possible and that Severus does visit who he chooses to. Now, in this day and age, hate towards Joanne would have been welcomed and embraced by a good chunk of the fandom. But this was pre all the turf behavior, so as you can expect, Snapewives interacting with other sections of the Harry Potter fandom was chaotic to say the least. I do want to add that channeling alternate personalities isn't that uncommon in fandom in general. Some people view this as an extended form of roleplay or as a lifestyle that deserves basic respect. Okay, so I've been outlining different dramas that happened within Snapeism to cause its fall, but the next question is what was most likely the beginning of the end. Was Snape actually perfect? I tried looking for this live journal post, but I can't seem to find it, which doesn't surprise me. Many of the Snapeist posts and journals have been deleted. The post was written by a Snapewife who was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the most prominent figures in the community, and she was apparently done with Snape. She wrote a post that listed all of his perceived flaws. This made a lot of Snapewives angry as they truly believed Snape had no faults. Lady Darkness, who wrote the vows I read previously and was also a very prominent figure in the community, had this to say about this post. I am so sorry these fans even dared to speak your name. Obviously, this one is not loyal or even trying to understand what makes you you. I feel ashamed some speak like this about you, as I feel you deserve better. Please know that there are fans that do accept you as you are, and not all find more negative sides to you than positive ones. I felt tempted to react, but as I don't want to start another war, and you would probably tell me to put my energy in things that do matter, I decided to place my reaction to this insanity here. Wait, isn't that reacting? She was tempting to react. Snape would have said to put her energy in something more productive, but she reacted anyway because this is the reaction. Okay, whatever. I feel disgusted by this, as you probably would too. Severus, all I can say is that for me, all of this rubbish is just what it looked like. Rubbish and lies. To me, you're perfect the way you are. The flaws mentioned are not flaws as such, but merely fantasy made up by writers, and for the other part just characteristics. The ones some claim to like, but in fact don't have a clue as to understanding why you are as you are. I do. As you know, I share many of your flaws, which kept us alive and with our noses up all of these harsh years. Be well, Severus, and know I will always be right beside you, loving and loyal, no matter what happens. This caused other Snapewives to join in with their own support. Eventually, the Snape critic ended up apologizing and leaving Snapeism for good, as she claimed she was no longer deserving of his love. While Snapewives continued to worship Snape after this, the rift between two of the most prominent members resulted in infighting. This of course made people wary of interacting at all. And now, to the nail that broke the camel's back, the final straw in the coffin. All things can't last forever, right? And just like Snapeism couldn't last forever, neither did the love for Snape. The supposed fall of Snapeism started by one of the wives falling in love with someone else. At first I was like, good for her, but no, it's not what you think. This particular Snapewife fell in love with a different fictional man. The man being Jethro Gibbs from NCIS. This wasn't just any Snapewife either, by the way. This was an important member of the community, a leader. Let me read you some parting words a Snapewife wrote. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's the same Snapewife that fell in love with Gibbs. I think at this point a lot of them were leaving the community, so this could be any one of them. I just liked this letter and wanted to read it to you guys. Dear Severus, this might be my last letter to you. Not because I stopped loving you. I can't do that, ever. Not because I am too weak, or because I found someone. You're still my light. There will never be anyone else but you. And right now, I'm stronger than ever. Dealing with so much shit, my head explodes. This might be the last one because I have let you go. For you, and not for me. Try to stop me if you do care. I dare you, Severus Snape. Stop me from letting you go. And tell me you notice me. Loving you, I will never stop. I just have to move on. I am sure you will see what I mean. That is, if you ever notice what I go through lately. I need my strength to fight for my kids. No more asking, waiting, and pleading. No more rituals at all. If you want me, stop me. If you don't, let me go. Or tell me you hate me. That makes it easier. Please understand. I miss you so much it takes away all my energy and fighting spirit. I only want to be with you. While I should be looking after my kids, set my mind free, or be there for me, I dare and beg you. I am sorry, Severus, Apparently you were right all along. I am not the one, and I will never be worthy to be. Just forget about me. Always yours. That will never change. Never. Be well, my dearest. Please forgive me my weakness. And apparently, Severus never replied because there's another letter after that one. One day later. Indeed, that was my last letter. You already know why I say this. I wish you well with the women of your choice, Severus. Now, I know it was never me. If you ever want to know where I am, look for me in the shadows. I apologize for all the grief I have caused. I did not mean to. I was selfish, uncontrolled, and stupid. I will move on with you in my heart. That will never change. No one can make me lose that too. Not even you, Severus. Be well and happy. I will always love you. There were actually quite a bit of letters and poems written by Snapewives to Snape. I can't read them all, unfortunately, but I would say that based on the context of the letter we just read, he's either someone who was having a hard time contacting Snape and not the one that I mentioned that fell in love with the other NCIS guy, because unless the letter is lying and there is someone else, who knows? I don't know. So, with most of the popular members gone and the people left still arguing with each other, Snapeism started falling apart. It had ran its course, people started losing interest over the whole thing, as it tends to happen. There might still be some Snapeists left somewhere on the internet if you watch this video. Hi, how are you? You doing good? But for the most part, it's a dead fandom. And although most of the live journals are gone, I actually had a really hard time finding any of them that were not deleted. You can still find the remains of this group in Photoshop pictures, people talking about them, and fanfiction. It's strange to see something that caused so much drama and controversy in one of the biggest fandoms to this day pretty much forgotten for the most part.
Snape. Severus Snape.
I wanted to dedicate a small section of this video to the response outsiders had to Snapeism, and by outsiders mean outsiders of Snapeism, not necessarily outsiders of the Harry Potter fandom or fandom culture in general. And I know technically I'm kind of mocking it as well. I have made a few jokes about it, but in my defense, some of them were pretty sexist and body shame other women, so I don't feel too bad. Most of the hate and mockery they received though was mostly from them being considered what the kids these days call cringy. I am mostly in the boat of if it's not hurting anybody, then who cares, be happy. However, I don't think Snapeism wasn't hurting anybody. If it's true that women were leaving their partners for Spirit Snape, then wow, that sucks for them. I'm sure that wasn't a fun experience. I'm sure also the women getting body shamed and told they weren't good enough to be visited by Snape were also hurt. That's never a nice thing to experience, especially knowing that most people who seek this kind of internet communities usually don't have an easier social life in the real world. Snapeism also perpetuated sexist ideals of a woman's role, and fuck that. Most of the hate directed towards Snapeists came from fandom wank. This was a journal fan community that was dedicated to making fun of drama caused by fans on the internet, also known as wank. Wait, do the younger kids know what journal fan was? Journal fan closed in 2015, so I'm gonna assume no. Journal fan was a live journal clone. It was fan-oriented and restricted to 18+ users. Even though it's closed, a lot of it is archived through the Wayback Machine. That's where the name you might see if you look into this, Snapefan, comes from. Snapefan were Snape fans. To put it in simple terms, fandom wank was what our hobby drama is now, kinda like a lolcow or Kiwi Farms type of deal. Fandom wank is where most of the commentary on Snapeism happened. You can probably imagine what a lot of the mockery towards them was, considering they were a group of women with an interest on the internet. The fandom wank community found Snapewife posts shocking and hilarious. I think a more accurate term for it nowadays is obviously cringe. They were considered, and I'm quoting here, these are not my words, signs of the apocalypse and batshit motherfuckers who weren't far from running mad and naked on a moor in a thunderstorm. The point is, a lot of people don't like passionate fans, especially if it's teenage girls or women on the internet. A lot of the criticism came especially from people who thought that the only reason Snapeists were into Snape to begin with was because they were attracted to Alan Rickman, which is a fair assumption. We see that a lot in fandom culture. That being said, I think maybe the reaction would have been more tame if it wasn't for the whole religious fundamentalist aspect to it all, very cultish aspect of it. Not everyone agreed with the hate they got though. An argument made was that it's okay when sport fans are passionate about sports, but once it's a woman who's passionate about a fictional character, then it's viewed as extreme and something to mock. Someone who went by the username Severus talked about this in a post on Dreamwidth that I will link as well, called Unpopular Fanish Opinion, I Feel Bad About Mocking Snapewives. Basically, she mentions that extreme behaviors or opinions are only acceptable in fandom as long as they are done with an amount of irony. She also compares the investment some of the wives had on Snape as no worse than football fans who paint themselves in their team's colors. The over-enthusiastic male sports fan is more acceptable than the female Harry Potter fan, even though people like him have often caused public riots or streak across fields while wearing nothing but the aforementioned body paint. Something I didn't mention before because I didn't quite know where is that some of the prominent Snapewives I talked about before had children, and some of the anti-Snapeism people demanded that CPS take their kids because of their intense feelings towards Snape. You don't see people calling CPS on passionate sports fans, even though they're historically known to be very violent. Not all of them, but look it up. Look up like the statistics of domestic abuse after certain big teams lose a game or like a major game, and you'll see like it's not a good environment in a lot of cases. By the way, from everything I saw, these women deeply care about their children. They seem to be fine mothers. The only hiccup I saw was that letter I read previously, the goodbye letter, where she mentions that she wishes to stop thinking about Snape so she could concentrate more on her kids. But that's a good thing. She was doing a good thing at separating herself from Snape because she recognized that she could be spending that time with her children. And you want to call CPS on a woman that recognizes that maybe her hobbies are getting a little bit too far or her interests are getting a little bit too extreme and she maybe needs to separate herself just a little bit and be with her children. That sounds like a decent mother to me, at least. Obviously, I don't know their circumstances. There could be so much more going behind the scenes, but from what we can see, they weren't being bad mothers. They were just assuming this. And this also happened in the whole Miss Scribe situation. If you know about that, I'll link a video about that. We can agree that there's always been a certain level of sexism and hypocrisy depending on what gender passionate fans are and what they are passionate about. It's also pretty common for teenage girls' interest to be target of mockery. See things like Twilight, for example, a series of books/movies that had their issues and fair criticism, but were mostly made fun of because it's something teenage girls were passionate about. And okay, Snapewives apparently weren't teenage girls. Another common thing that happens, this time more inside fandoms, is wanting to exclude middle-aged women from them. Now, I personally think all of this is valid, as in they received an unnecessary amount of mockery. But Snapeism had a lot to be critical of, as I mentioned before. But you didn't see people talking about the sexism, the body shaming, the cultish behavior in the community. Snapewives would even make fun of people who liked other characters or did not accept Snape as their master. But no, they would mock their looks, their bad art and writing skills, or how committed they were to their interests. They would say things like women their age should find better hobbies. When you look at it, the faults of the anti-Snape people and the faults of the actual Snape people were very similar. It's something we see online even today.
Snape, Snape, Severus Snape.
Snapeism was a controversial phenomenon to come out of the Harry Potter fandom in its earlier days. Well, I can't say that I believe in the theology of Snapeism. I will say that it's definitely not the worst thing to have ever come out of Harry Potter or the fandom. Not to say that it was a positive environment by any means, as sexism and toxicity seem to be a staple of the community. It was also an early look into a more extreme side of fan culture, which is way more common nowadays. Maybe common isn't the right word, more in the public eye, more mainstream. I don't know. I can definitely see a lot of similarities in how Snapeists treated Snape and current stan culture on sites like Twitter or on Tumblr. The way Snapewives treated outsiders sometimes was kind of reminiscent of Super Hulock back in the old Tumblr days. You know, the whole I am better and more clever than you because I watched these 3 shows. Can you imagine getting ratioed on Twitter with the Snape fan cam? Oh god, I bet Snape fan cams totally exist. They do.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares.
When it comes to passionate fans, things tend to be taken too far. I definitely think a lot of Snapeism can seem very wild and unbelievable for an outsider, but most of us have things that might seem like that to an outsider. As mentioned before, I would always be on the side of if it doesn't hurt anyone, then you do you. So as long as you're not making others feel like shit or neglecting your real life families, marry and bang whoever you want in the astral plane. Just don't be an ass. I don't think I have much more to say that I haven't expressed through this whole video, so I will leave you with this poem written by one of the wives called Shattered. Your photo in my cold hand, preparing my final descent. Numbing peace leads me there, eyes behind broken glass stare. For you I'll break the glass, wanting only you or none at all. Clouds of doubt overshadow my fate. Will you be waiting for me at the gate? And that's all I have for today. I would really love to hear your opinions on this one. Have you ever heard of Snapeism and Snapewives before? Were you there when this was all going down? Do you think Snape is God? There's a lot more to this I didn't include because it gets so convoluted, and I was just reading this stupid scholar article that is actually pretty good. I don't know why I call it stupid. And it's not that it was badly written, it's just that it was like a lot of drama and a lot of things that made no sense to me. And just, I think it's something you have to read for yourself to understand why it was so hard for me to read it. Maybe it was just me, maybe it's not that hard of a read, but I was having trouble. Like, I could not get words through. Like, I would have to read the same sentence over and over and I wouldn't understand it. My brain was rejecting it. And I am someone who reads a lot, okay? Like, just go to my social media and see like my book threads or my book highlights. I read a lot. And this was a hard read for me. So that's why I did not include more of it in this video, as well as like, there's just a lot of information that I think would lead to finding these people really easily. And I just don't want that to be a thing. I feel like it's been a long time, and I'm hoping they're having like a good life and they're happy with their families and they have found someone they love. Hopefully that person they love is a real person and not on the astral plane, but I don't judge. If it's on the astral plane, more power to you. So if you have any anecdotes or similar experiences, let me know. I'm like super interested in this like section of fandom culture where people start forming religious and cults around a character or a piece of media. I don't know why. I got into a rabbit hole when I read about Snapeism in for the Sexy Man video, and I keep finding similar situations happening in different fandoms. Like, something like that apparently happened also in the Lord of the Rings fandom, and I kind of want to read more about it. Maybe I'll make a video of it. And if I find more information about Shiro Wives, because I can only find one Tumblr post, which is why there probably will never be a video on it. But if I can't find more information, I might also do a video in it, because I just find it so interesting how people get so passionate about a piece of media. And like, I get it. I'm like that. I can't like things normally. If I like something, I just let it consume myself. I have to watch every piece of media. I have to look through the internet and find everything I can. I remember when I was a teenager, since we're here, we're friends, right? When I was a teenager, I was so into My Chemical Romance. And I'm talking like 14, 15. This was like pre-Black Parade, I would say. It was like when the Black Parade was starting to like you could find like leaked songs and stuff like that from My Chemical Romance. I was so into it. that there was not a picture of My Chemical Romance on the internet of any of the band members that I had not seen. I had a folder that occupied almost the whole space of my computer back then, and it was all filled with My Chemical Romance pictures, and finding new pictures was rare for me. Like, if there was a new picture, it's because they just took it or they just released it. I had everything. Like, that's the kind of person I was when I was a teenager. So I can definitely understand people who get really passionate about things, like maybe not, to the astral plane levels or to the bullying people online levels, but I definitely understand it, and I find it fascinating, and I like reading things made by people who are passionate about something. So if you have anything like this, let me know, because I like looking through this stuff. And you know what? Tell me what you're passionate about too. Like, this is a safe zone. You can tell me about your weird shit. I won't judge you. Unless, once again, you're hurting people, then I will judge you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, and if you're new, make sure you subscribe. I can't even tell you what I do videos on these days because I don't even know, but sometimes they're mostly art and internet related, so hang out with us if you want to. I also stream on Twitch if you want to watch me play video games pretty badly, and very rarely do art. If you have any suggestion for topics, you can leave them here or on any social media I have on the description, so be sure to check those out for that and updates about videos and art stuff. And you can also join the Patreon, but I don't like talking about it because I always feel bad about asking for money, but there's a Patreon, and it really helps me out, and you can get your name in the credits and art. So there's that. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my patrons who somehow stick around even with the lack of content these past few months. Yeah, see you next time. Have a good day, good night, and good fight. Bye.